How does that happen? Well, recording has started. Maybe that has something to do with it. But okay. So hey, here we are. We're at section GG. So you guys should just like totally annihilate this section, right? Shouldn't be anything, no surprises here, but I did try and point out, what are, as we call, the finer points of the GG items to be on the lookout for. Just make the slides move, I'll be happy. Okay, here we go. All right. Just a reminder with the GG item guidance, they are not going to be mirror images of the M18 items, right? There are differences between the two, but when you look at a similar item on the M18 side, the patient should look like it's the same patient and not two totally different. It's like, wait a minute, he can't walk here, but he can walk here. That's not making sense. So you want to be sure that it's, have the clinician scored that it's looking like the same patient. And just a reminder on any of the tasks, if you see from documentation, which you'll probably find on the therapy side, if they were actually using two helpers and the patient was dependent, needed the two helpers in order to do a task, that is coded as dependent for these GG items. So you throw a second person in the mix, they're automatically that code 01 dependent. So similar to the M18 items, what is inherent in all the GG items is safely. The task has to be safely completed by the patient. What's different is that we don't care in the GG items where the task occurs or how the patient got to where the task occurred. Doesn't matter. All that matters is once you are there, can the patient do the task safely? And how much of it can they do? What's the percentage of assistance needed? Whatever that might be. But we don't care how they got there. All right. Again, it's just about the task itself in the GG items. The majority of task convention also doesn't apply in these GG items. So for instance, when we're talking about upper body dressing, the M1810, in the M18 section, we're looking at, all the different things. What are they able to do? Majority of the tasks, majority of the times. In the GG items, you're looking at everything in its entirety and what do they need assist with. And so it could just be one or two things like, okay, I'm good with everything, but I do need some assist for putting on my bra, say, for instance. In that case, I'm going to be scored on that assistance that is needed. So it's not a majority things like, well, we don't worry about the bra because I could also do, I can do my undershirt, my t-shirt, a sweater, a jacket, whatever it is I'm wearing. Doesn't matter. It's not a majority when it comes to the GG items. So GGO 100, the prior functioning. The scoring of this is actually basically pretty simple. You're like, oh my gosh, all these choices, are they independent, needed some help, or dependent? Look at it this way. Independent is the patient did everything. Patient did it all, didn't need anybody. One is dependent. The helper did all the work. Everything in between is that score 2. Doesn't matter how much assist, we don't care. You're either, this is like literally an on-off switch and everything that falls in between. Either the patient did it all or the helper did it all, or you just have that big gray area in between. That's that code 2. So those are, it's a nice, easy way to look at it. If anyone finds that, the clinicians that they're on may be struggling to, get that scoring. It's like, really, it's an all or nothing for this. One of the things that has changed is that a stair lift is considered an assistive device for the purposes of coding GG 0100 now. All right, so if the patient requires a stair lift to go up and down the stairs and they are able to use it independently, which means they can run the little trigger by itself to make it go up and down, at that warp speed of, right, then they would be assigned code of 3 independent. So a stair lift is considered an assistive device. For the GG 0110, the prior device use, just remember that this does not include canes or crutches. And you want to be certain that the clinician has not checked off equipment that doesn't belong to the patient or wasn't used by the patient. You know, if you actually see documentation that says, you know, there was a walker sitting in the hallway and it might be the patient's, might be the patient's wife's, like, you know, we don't know whose it is. Did they use it before? If there's just nothing to support that, you know, be sure that they're not checking off equipment that the patient did not use prior to this event. And I know that's a tough one because you're not out there and documentation is tenuous at best. This is the, you know, we all know the GG items decision tree. And I'm just showing that because the next slide shows the little spin that OASIS Answers put on it at our last conference. They also wound in the 88 and 09 and 07 codes, you know, all those refusals or, you know, activity not attempted because of codes. So I really like this, and that it really helps with the decision process. So again, you know, if you find that, you know, you've got some of your agencies might benefit from this, you know, screenshot it, print it, whatever you have to do, send that out to them. I don't care. It's, you know, it's nothing here that is proprietary. This is OASIS guidance. It's just bringing in all of the OASIS guidance regarding these GG items and putting it all on one slide to show how it all does interact together. So, you know, it always starts with the question, was the activity completed by the patient and or the helper? And that's being determined either by observation or by report, assessment of a similar activity, or determined by collaboration, because we know that's allowed. And then you're either going to go down the path of yes, which just leads you then into the regular decision the regular decision tree, or it's no, and then you have to start answering the questions. Well, was it completed by the patient, you know, prior to this? So it's, again, you're just following the path to get to the right, you know, not applicable or refusal code, whatever that might be. So I thought that was pretty clever of them to do. So I stole the idea. GGO130, this is the way it looks in OASIS E. As you can see, discharge looks just like the start of care. Nothing special there. We still have the same items. They haven't changed anything there. For eating, the GGO130A, this is probably one of the few items that actually looks like its counterpart in M1870. For the eating, it's the exact same thing of if the patient requires assistance to swallow safely, then we don't really look at their ability to swallow. You're coding them on the type and amount of assistance required for feeding and safe swallowing. So this is about the ability to bring the food to the mouth, chew it, and swallow it, all is safety concerned. What is not considered either here or the M1870 item is how the food magically appeared in front of them. So think of this as a restaurant item. You're at a restaurant, the server brings you your food, and now how are you going to do with this? And that's all we care about is the server brought you your food. Now tell me about getting that food to your belly. That process, is that safe? Toileting hygiene, a lot like the M1845. There's really no differences between those two at all. It's lovely. I like it when they at least agree on a lot of things. The shower and bathing, this does include the ability to wash, rinse, and dry the face, upper and lower body, the perineal area, and the feet, regardless of where the bathing takes place, right? The bathing item on the M18 side, remember, has 7 different choices to it. And some of them, you know, the location will vary. Here, it doesn't care. It's just about the task. Just tell me about the task. That's all I want to know. So it doesn't include washing, rinsing, and drying the patient's back or their hair. I mean, the hair is nowhere in the OASIS at all, but the back is in the M1830 item, not in this GG item. It also does not include transferring in and out of the tub or the shower or on or off the tub or the bench. We don't care how you got there, wherever it is, just tell me about the bathing task itself, right? So that's why this is a tough one to compare to the M18 item because just some really key differences there. For the 130 F, G, and H, it's the upper and lower body dressing item and the footwear. So just like on the M18, M1820 side, you want to consider what clothing is routine. We're also looking at elastic bandages, orthoses, prostheses, braces. That's all considered clothing. Time to completion is not a factor. You can take all day long. As long as you're safe, it doesn't matter. If the dressing portions occur throughout the day, consider the task in its entirety. Okay, so I did the bra and the t-shirt first thing in the morning, later in the day came the sweater, then at night came the jacket to put on. I want to take all those things together, not just consider what I only did in the morning. Everything together in its entirety. How did I do with that task? Was a helper needed at any of those stages? So we know what upper body dressing is. We know what lower body dressing is. But unlike the M1820 item, there is no footwear in the lower body dressing item. It's strictly your underwear, incontinence briefs, slack shorts, capri pants, pajama bottoms, and skirts, right? No footwear, because footwear is item H, where you want to determine if the footwear worn, whether it's your socks, grippy socks, slippers, or shoes, is appropriate for safe mobility. So if you have someone that just likes to walk around the house in their socks and you look around, you're seeing nothing but tile floor and hardwood floor, that might be a problem as far as safety is concerned. Because I know when I had my ACL repaired and I had my crutches and I had my socks on, you know what? Not a good idea because I have hardwood floors. Yes, I fell 3 times. 3 times. I know better. 3 times I fell until I said, you know what? Put your sneakers on. Because, yeah, you can't tell me anything. So is it lower body clothing or is it footwear? So in order to determine which activity the piece of clothing should apply to, consider items that cover all or part of the foot, even if it extends up the leg like a sock, as footwear. So the compression stockings, right, that in M1820, we would call those lower body dressing items. They would not count for lower body dressing in the GG items. They're footwear, right? So that blue box there on the side, M1820 lower body dressing encompasses all of the GG0130G lower body dressing and the H footwear items. So that's a key thing there. It's not going to give up the code. That's a problem. Well, we might not be able to play Slido. It didn't tell us the code, and I have no way of breaking into this deck. Bummer. Why is it not? Oh, you know what? I might have the calendar set wrong. That's probably why. All right, so we'll just, yeah, you can use the chat you want, thumbs up, anything you want. So let's just do this. So socks, Ted hose, slippers, and shoes are considered for both M1820 lower body dressing and GG0130G lower body dressing. True or false? Is that going to be a thumbs up or? Because there's a reactions button as well. Let's see. We can have thumbs up or, okay, thumbs up for true or the surprise face for false. Everyone's like, where's the reactions? The reactions are right next to the chat. I'm getting high hands, that'll work. Okay, yeah, so these socks, Ted hose, slippers, and shoes are not considered for lower body dressing. Those are for H, the footwear items. So this would be a false. Move this slide along. It's not detecting. Sorry, I had to like try and force feed it here to move along because it's not playing nicely today. It's just a bummer. All right, I promise I will be checking the calendars for the next one. See, still learning all about Slido here. Okay, GG0170, the mobility items. As you can see, the resert and the discharge look a lot like the start of care, resumption of care, but you'll notice on the resert, there is no item G, K, or O, so you won't have the car transfers, walking 150 feet, or the 12 steps. I don't know why they choose what they choose, but those have just been omitted from the resert at least. And same thing, P and S. So picking up picking up an object from the floor and wheeling 150 feet are not on the resert, but those do show up on the discharge, which is the same as the start of care, resumption of care. So with these GG0170 mobility tips for A, B, and C, yeah, these are just various guidance that's been out for a while. So just a reminder that if the patient's preferred sleeping surface is either in the recliner or a mattress on the floor, then the clinician really needs to play in their world, how they've adjusted their life to being in that world. We can't just say, well, they don't sleep in a bed, so this item doesn't apply. No, the recliner is now their bed, so their thinking has to swivel over towards that way. So GG0170A, rolling left and right. Same thing we're looking at. These first several ones all look like that transfer item, don't they, on M1850? You have to do all these things in order to do that. So again, a lot of these taken together in a group will look like another item. So you want to be sure, does this look like the same patient? Compare that M1850 transfer item to all the task breakdown that we have here. Rolling and then sit to lying, lying to sit, right? You have to do all that in that transfer task. Lying to sitting on the side of the bed. This did get an upgrade in the guidance as we went into E, where it's no longer required that the patient's feet be flat on the floor to assess this item, right? So they don't care that the feet are dangling. I think a lot of people wrote in like, look, a lot of our patients are under 5 feet tall. Their feet are not going to touch the ground. How do you really want us to assess this? What's the issue here? So they said, that's it. We're just going to remove that guidance. Don't worry about the feet on the floor. And then we have the sit to stand. And then the chair, bed to chair transfer. So you look at all those first items, right? The A, B, C, D, and E. Those collectively together make up M1850E. So you definitely want to be looking at those 5 items against that one saying, does this look like the same patient? Or are they miraculously in one area and totally dependent in another? It's like, this does not make sense. So look at those 5 against that one to see. F is the toilet transfer. And this includes the patient's ability to get on and off the toilet. Again, we don't care how they got there. So this is just part of the M1840. A bedpan use is not considered in the toilet transfer activity task. Car transfers. It includes the patient's ability to transfer in and out of a car or a van seat on the passenger side. And this could still be completed while accommodating medical restrictions such as long sitting, right? A lot of paras will have a long sitting medical restriction, which means they sit with their feet out straight in front of them. You're like, they're not bending at the knees or anything like that. You want to ensure the clinician is not considering getting to or from the vehicle, opening or closing the car door. If you have to do that for the patient, that's perfectly acceptable. It's not part of this item. And it also doesn't include fastening or unfastening the seatbelt. Now, if the patient remains in a wheelchair and doesn't transfer, the activity is not considered completed and the appropriate activity not attempted code would be used. So they don't even allow like interview for that. They just say, nope, you're out. Walking. You always want to start the assessment once the patient gets up to that standing position. So once they're up, then the clinician should start assessing them. So we don't worry about that transfer. Why? Because that transfer was another task as well as initial 170 tasks of the actual sit to stand transfer. So we're not going to reassess that. Now, a helper cannot complete a walking activity for a patient. Unlike dressing or bathing or even stairs where someone can help no one can help you. They can't complete the task for you. You either walk the distance or you don't walk the distance. So a brief standing rest break is permitted. Standing rest break. The activity not attempted code is used when the patient requires a sitting rest break, or the patient cannot complete the walking activity with the assistance of one or more helpers, right? But again, we can't do the walking for you. You know, only you can walk, you being the patient. Stairs, though. Completing the stairs indicates that the patient goes up and down the stairs by any safe means, with or without an assistive device, which could be the railing, the walker, a cane, a stair lift, right? With or without some level of assistance. So you can go up and down on your feet, like most of us probably do, or bumping up and down the stairs on their buttocks. A lot of paras will do that. Ascending and descending the stairs does not have to occur sequentially or during one session. If the assessment of going up and down the stairs occurs sequentially, which means you go up, you come down, the patient may take a standing or seated rest break between ascending and descending the stairs. So I can go up to the landing, I can stand there and rest, or I can sit and rest before I continue on to the rest of the stairs, or if that's the rest of my stairs, turn around and come back down, right? A patient who's a wheelchair user may be assessed going up and down a stair, like one step or a curb in a wheelchair. And anyone that's been in a wheelchair for a while knows how to go up and down one stair. When using a stair lift to ascend or descend stairs, they're going to be coded based on the assistance needed once they are seated. And it ends when the patient is ready to transfer out of the seat. So what's going to be assessed from someone that's using a stair lift is once they're in their seat, can they put their seatbelt on and can they run the little trigger that makes it go up and down the stairs? And once they get up to the top, are they able to let go of the trigger and undo their seatbelt safely? Or are they trying to do it like halfway through? It's like, okay, that would not be safe. That wouldn't be the time. So the assessment is strictly about once they're in their seat, how are they doing with making the chair move up the stairs? Oh, one step, that's all right. 4 steps, we're talking about the ability to go up and down 4 steps, either with or without a railing, doesn't matter. 12 steps, again, up and down with or without a railing. If the patient does not have 12 stairs, clinical judgment can be used by the clinician to determine, you know, if you're out there in the home, if I do have 4 steps, maybe I'll make them go up and down 3 times to see. Or I just might ask them, do you ever encounter 12 steps in any of your life? And they may say, yeah, when I go to my daughter's house, there's 12 steps to get in, or 12 steps I have to go upstairs inside to go use the restroom. In that case, that's definitely a goal I want to get towards, is going up and down 12 stairs. But they say, nah, you know, I always use the handicap ramp, or the most I see is like the 2 steps to get into our own home. Then this might be one of those, you know, activity codes where, you know, don't do it. Didn't do it before, don't have to do it again. So that's a clinical decision as to how they want to handle those multiple steps like that. Here's another Slido that won't work. A brief seated rest break is not permitted during the ambulation task, but is permitted for the stairs task. True or false? We'll get a thumbs up or a surprise face for false. Thumbs up for true, surprise face for false. Nobody's playing with me today. Okay. I promise I will get it working. Come on, move, 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 move. There we go. Okay, so it was true that, I think that was the question. Seated rest break is permitted for stairs, but is not for walking. All right, picking up an object. This activity includes the patient bending or stooping from a standing position. So anyone that's ever sent me an email asking, okay, the patient's in a wheelchair, how would I score this item? You know, checking to see if the clinician got it right. I'm like, no. it can only be done from a standing position. So if they're wheelchair, this doesn't apply then. All right, so this is for those that can stand.
And that
So
all of
assist-
it's a safe standing position.
Oh yeah, safety is inherent in everything. Yeah.
I don't want
Yep.
me mom that's bobbing back and forth, bending over and picking something up.
If I'm picking something up from the floor, I'm using the golf pick because that's just the best thing to do. You know, one hand goes down, the opposite leg goes back, right? But I usually also have one hand on the countertop or something. But otherwise, if I'm not near anything to hold on to, I'm squatting. Yeah. Assistive devices and adaptive equipment may be used, for example, a cane to support your standing balance and or a reacher to pick up an object. So you can use a reacher and it will qualify for this. The wheelchair items. So this includes people who are learning how to self-mobilize using a wheelchair, or someone who needs assistance from a helper to mobilize using that wheelchair or scooter. You know, I still remember when my nephew got married 7-8 years ago, his grandpa on my sister's in-law side, the Outlaws, was in a scooter, but he could not get this scooter to go up a ramp and take the U-turn. I mean, we were like getting ready to pee ourselves. We were laughing so hard because he was like getting ready to take out the railing and everything. So I actually had to get in there and run the scooter for him, you know, get hold of the little toggle switch and, you know, move him around. So that would be assistance from someone to mobilize a scooter. Patients who require a helper to push them in a wheelchair, right? Or a helper can assist a patient to complete the wheelchair distance or make turns if required, right? So this is where we said no one can walk for you, but they can certainly help you with your wheelchair distance. So, you know, if a patient, you know, if they're being assessed for, you know, the wheeling 150 feet, if they did 120 feet and like, man, I just cannot go any further, my arms are falling off, and the clinician completes the last 30 feet, that task was completed. Not all of it by the patient. They needed assistance to complete that last 30 feet, but that is okay, right? Because the task was completed. They went 150 feet, just not all of it by the patient. And that's where sometimes it's hard for clinicians to get that into their head. Like I said, we can't walk for a patient. We can give them assistance while they are walking, but we cannot pick them up and finish walking the rest of the distance and say they walked 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever it is. But we can certainly push them in a wheelchair to complete a task. And then they are assessed based on how much assistance I had to give as the pusher. All right, so this was basically, you know, a pretty short one. Like I said, it's the GG items. That's actually the last slide. The GG items. So there's things that we should be familiar with. There might have been a few things that are like, oh, let me write that one down. The decks are uploaded into Smartsheet, and as soon as we get this recording and I get that all transferred, I have to actually push this through YouTube and then out the other end to get it loaded onto the Easy LMS. Then it'll be up there with the recorded version. But you know, in and of itself, the deck is done. But like I said, just the slides themselves, no sound, is available on Smartsheet. They're all there. All 8 of them are there right now. Any questions at all on this?
You have one. It says, I sometimes see GG0170 states patient can wheel themselves, but are dependent with upper body dressing. Do you see this as inconsistent?
Yeah, that's inconsistent. I mean, if you can wheel yourself in a wheelchair, then just make sure that they're talking about a wheelchair, not a scooter. But if you can wheel yourself in a manual wheelchair, you should be able to dress. Now, they might not be able to put stuff on overhead, and that might be where they need assistance. So they might not be dependent, but they might need assistance, because I might have rotator cuff issues where I would not be able to get my hands over my head, but I can certainly move a wheelchair. So you'd have to parse out what's going on with those shoulders, but it wouldn't make sense that they'd be polar opposites on their scoring for those items. It's a good question.
Right. I agree. I mean, you can have people that have pacemakers, and you can
Yeah,
do down here, but you can't do up here. So
exactly. There might be some restrictions.
I was acting all that out in case y'all didn't know, but y'all couldn't see me. So
Didn't see that. Yeah, sorry. And I know
I know.
sometimes I get very Italian in my well, I'm talking to the camera that doesn't just do anything, it just looks at me. So, any other questions? We are halfway through all the OASIS E training. We still have some really exciting stuff to go. Next week, we got some brand new items. I mean, we'll be going through, bowel and bladder, yawn, same stuff, blow through that. The coding is in there, but the new pain items. So next week will be exciting, the new pain items. And then we get, huh?
There is another question in here
Okay.
about 170P. Says sometimes
Okay.
clinicians answer one. What would documentation look like to support that? Is one possible?
Depending for picking something up off the floor, I would say someone's holding them the entire time. Or two peoples are holding them at some level. Two people are assisting in some matter. Maybe someone's on oxygen, someone's holding the oxygen, the tube, so they don't trip over it while they're reaching for something. And then you got someone else that's supporting the person. So that's where you can have two people coming in, or you have one person doing all the effort, which is like, why don't you just pick the damn thing up yourself?
Yeah. To me, that's real. That sounds more like a default to an 88, but I do see an answered one sometimes, and I don't think you can rule it out.
Yeah, it's a weird one to be marked dependent. All I can think of is it's probably because of there were two persons involved,
Right.
and because of there's two, even though they might just both be doing some type of minimal assistance, it defaults to dependent. We don't have an option on that.
And there was a Q&A that came out that said, even if you have two people, but you may not use both of them, but they're there because you have the potential to need both of them, you would still say dependent. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking more. It's about two. Dina, I also have clinicians not assess walking, but they say the patient can. We have to use 88, right? Well, all right. So let's just remember with these items, interview is acceptable. We hate it, but it's acceptable. It's, observation is always the best strategy, but it is by no means mandatory. So she says, I often have clinicians not assess walking, but do say the patient can. Since they do not assess the task, especially true for prior patients, they want to use clinical judgment based on prior level of functioning. Well, I would never base anything on prior level of functioning because anything could have happened in the meantime. So if for whatever reason the clinician is choosing not to have this patient get up and show me how things are going, then I'm going to start resorting to a lot of interview of the patients and any caregivers around of, did they do this yesterday? How did they do? Did they do this morning? What did it look like? I'm going to start, peppering them with questions. But, the clinician should always be doing their darndest to make someone get up and do something.
And it could be on that it took Mama 4 or 5 rocking back and forth to stand up.
Yeah.
And once you stood up, she went too far frontward, backward 2 or 3 times, and you're like, whoa, just go and sit back down there.
Yeah,
ain't walking nowhere.
We're done with this.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you a
Yeah.
comment and I'm glad Dana or Deanna brought that up, that I have seen sometimes on some of the Facebook groups, is that, well, I've heard that Medicare doesn't want us to use 88. They frown on us using 88. I've never seen documentation to say that they frowned on using 88. If it's appropriate and it's not safe for the patient, I would say all means use 88 or whatever not attempted code is appropriate.
Yeah. They were just, I was rolling back up through the chat here. Kelly came in saying that arthritic hands may not be able to do fasteners, but be able to do your wheelchair. Yeah. But just remember, arthritic hands, we're just going to worry about that really when it comes to the fasteners. That really doesn't preclude you from being able to put your clothes on, but that's definitely, you know, something that's going to be taken into consideration. It's going to get you away from being independent to needing some help. But I don't think it'll still be enough to throw you into a dependent category. That's strict. Did that one. Okay, I don't see any others piping in. All righty, so like I said, this was a nice, short and sweet, easy one. But the fun stuff is still to come.
Let's end on a, let me share an experience with y'all, give y'all something to laugh about. I've
Yeah.
had never worked an electric wheelchair. I didn't know anything about them. Had a patient get one. She'd always had a manual. She got an electric wheelchair. And this was probably not appropriate in home care, but we used to do this some. So every Wednesday when I went to see Miss Penn, she cooked lunch and we ate lunch together. So we had ate lunch. She said, April, I got this new wheelchair. I don't know how to use it. And I'm like, well, I don't either, but we'll figure it out. So I get in it and I knew you had to do the little lever to go front or back. What I failed to notice was the little turtle on one side and the rabbit on the other side. Well, it was on the rabbit. So when I pushed go, I promptly ran into her TV stand. I didn't knock the TV off, thank God, but I ran both knees right into that TV stand. Well, when she got through laughing at me, I backed back up and I said, well, we probably want to slow it down before you get in it. But anyway.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah, that's the rabbit and the hare and the turtle. Yeah, very important.
Well, you think a grown woman would have known that, but
yeah. We had a patient, we actually had to disable that, so he was just permanently on turtle. He wouldn't behave for nothing, and he was remodeling drywall right and left in his house. So yeah, we had to disable the speed controller.
look, when I get old, don't do that to me. I tell my husband when I get old, I used to smoke and I quit smoking a long time ago, that I'm gonna wear moo-moos, I'm gonna start smoking again, and I'm gonna take up hard liquor and chase young men. So y'all just let me be.
That.
He says, people gonna think you serious. I said, I am serious.
I love it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
You just go live your best life.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be me.
Smoke those Tiparillos.
That's right.
Now you're
and then we'll all be taking care of her when she has an accident and needs home health.
That's right.
Yeah, that should be non-compliant. Boot her
Oh
out.
yeah, I'm gonna be one of them cranky mamas.
Yeah.
Well, already I'm one of them cranky mamas. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's stop the recording. Thanks, Amy.
Might should have done that about 6 minutes